Ministers and shadow ministers are not allowed to sign early day motions. That has been presented by my opponent as fact. It's false.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Hawa TV. Welcome to a new episode of Out and About with Romana. I'm Daisy, MP candidate this time, Roshanara Ali for Bethnal Green and Stepney for the Labour Party. So we know, Assalamu alaikum Roshanara.
Assalamu alaikum. It's great to see you.
Lovely to see you again. So we know Labour is fighting for a change after 14 years of Tory government, and you are uniting to make that change, yeah?
We have had 14 years, Assalamu alaikum, we have had 14 years of Conservative chaos. We've seen cuts in housing, cuts in health, in education, in the police numbers. We've lost 21,000 police officers. That means that community safety has been put at risk. We've got people really suffering. Violence against women have gone up. Everywhere you look, things have been falling apart under the Tories. We need a Labour government to rebuild 1.5 million homes that we've committed to, because our people in this area of all backgrounds are struggling to get into housing. We need to make sure that the overcrowding that's there and that people are suffering under is addressed by building homes. Local councils can't do enough if they don't have the support from national government and funding from national government. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we have committed to 13,000 police officers that we need immediately to get in our streets, because community safety has been put at risk. When people call police officers, it's really hard. They're overstretched. They can't come quickly enough to deal with issues. Crime has gone through the roof. Violent crime has gone up in the last few years. So people are really suffering as a result. The other thing is inflation has gone up. Food costs a lot more than it used to under the Labour government. What we've seen is in interest rates in mortgages as well as rents
under the Conservative government.
Under the Conservatives. But when we were in power, we had low inflation, low interest rates, which meant people's costs were not as high. People are thousands of pounds worse off under this government. The final thing I'd say is they have had 5 prime ministers, 7 chancellors, and they also crashed the economy under Liz Truss. That has devastated people's livelihoods. So আমরা যেটা প্রায়োরিটি করলাম যে গত 14 বছরে আমরা লেবার গভর্নমেন্ট অপোজিশনও কনজারভেটিভ তাকিয়া আমরা হেলথ সার্ভিসের কাজ করছে, স্কুল বাচ্চাইন তোর চাইল্ড কেয়ার এর্লি ইয়ার্স এটা সবটা উঠাইছে, ট্যাক্স ক্রেডিট ফ্যামিলি হলর যেটা গর্ডন ব্রাউনে প্রাইম মিনিস্টার তাকতে ইন্ট্রোডিউস করছেন, এটা সব কিছু উঠাইছে। তখন আমরা ফ্যামিলি আরও গরিব হইরা, চাইল্ড পভার্টি বাড়ছে 40% আর হামলেছো ই গভর্নমেন্টে, কারণ বাচ্চাইন তোরে ফ্যামিলির গ্রান্ট যেটা সাপোর্ট যেটা এটা উঠাইছে। এটা উঠাই আমরা ফ্যামিলির খুব কষ্ট, প্যান্ডামিকের টাইমও অনেক কষ্ট হয়েছে। সো আর ইকোনমি ধ্বংস করা হয়েছে। এটা যদি আমরা গভর্নমেন্টে যাই না তে ঠিক করা যাইতো না। সো উই ওয়ান্ট টু সি a change in government to end this period of destruction. And also there has been a lot of hostility towards minority communities, black and Asian communities, Muslim communities under the Tories. They have actually pandered to those hostilities. So what we need to do is bring the country together, just like we need to bring our communities together. And if we are in government, we would be able to change domestic policy, improve our public services, but we would then also have the opportunity to influence foreign policy. When you're in opposition, you have to try and push the government, the Prime Minister of the day. You can't do it yourself. We can then have the international leadership role that's desperately needed so that we can end the conflict in the Middle East. But there are also we have to play a leadership role to bring an end to this war, to start a process for peace in the Middle East, to recognize
Labour Party
Palestinian statehood, and also work with our regional allies and the international community, because wars don't end with people just saying it needs to end. You have to.
But you can vote for a ceasefire, yeah?
My Labour Party had its own ceasefire motion, which we voted on, and we voted again. The only motion that was passed is the one that the Labour Party passed, because we got support from different parties. And what has happened, if I may, is that a separate motion that was a third-party motion that was deliberately designed to divide Parliament has been used to say we didn't vote against that. We voted for our own motion to end the fighting, and also we voted for a second motion for an immediate ceasefire. You have to work at these things. I ask you, go and ask Ajmal Masroor how he thinks an independent candidate can end the war when the rest of the world put together haven't been able to. Do you think, let me say this, do you think that he can single-handedly end the war? We all have to work together. If people want peace, they need to act peacefully here at home. We can have disagreements but not be disagreeable and work together to make the case for an incoming government and try and do everything we can to influence people who have power to bring an end to this war. Because the fact is that there are some people who are taking advantage of the suffering of people and not actually acting in good faith. We have to work together. That is the important thing. And we, as a party, have made those commitments to an immediate ceasefire. I have been calling for a ceasefire since October and continue to do so. And I have been working in Parliament, holding the government to account, the Prime Minister to account, making sure my party's position is for an end to the ceasefire.
We've seen other MPs in Labour have a much more vocal voice. We've seen less of you, let's be honest. We've seen less of you in this sort of crisis, but let's leave it at that. Let's leave it at that.
I would like to address this. If you are in the shadow government and you're a minister, government or shadow government, there are motions. So there've been my opposition has put fake leaflets, fake information saying that we haven't supported motions. Early day motions are for backbench MPs. I have done that in the backbenches, supported them. Ministers and shadow ministers are not allowed to sign early day motions. That has been presented by my opponent as fact. It's false. And they don't seem to understand the system, but they want to be, he wants to be an MP. So the point is that the issue about what MPs are doing, we've been working in Parliament. That's what we're elected to do, to make the case to the Prime Minister of the day, who's the only person who can make representation at the UN, in the international stage, and the Foreign Secretary, right? That's what we've been focused on. And we will continue to do that. If we're in government, we can actually then take the action that we have committed to doing. What I would say is that people should look at the actions of those who have now suddenly come here once again, and now this time round they're saying they're going to single-handedly deliver peace in the Middle East.
Is Keir Starmer afraid of these independent candidates?
We are working hard for a Labour government. That's what the country desperately needs. That's what my constituents need. We've had 14 years of chaos. That's our priority. It's about health. It's about education. It's about housing. It's about the things that people are tackling child poverty. It's the things that people have been suffering under. And what we will do, our commitment is that if we're elected, we will take that international leadership role that is desperately needed to bring an end to the war in Gaza and also in the wider region. And these are serious times, and it requires serious work and partnership at the international level. There are people here coming in saying that they, as an independent, can suddenly go and deliver what? What are they going to deliver on their own? If Ajmal Masroor thinks that he can deliver peace in the Middle East on his own because he's an independent standing for Parliament, and there are 49 MPs, then good luck to him. But the fact is that you need a government of the day to work to influence change, working with the international community.
Does the independent candidate pose a threat to Keir Starmer?
What independent candidate?
So independent candidates, if they get elected to MP status, would that pose a threat to Labour?
Nationally, this election is about a straight fight between Labour and Conservative. Yeah. So if we don't win enough seats, then we can't form a majority. And we have to win every single vote. Nobody, apart from postal voters, nobody's cast a vote on that's going to be on the 4th of July. Anyone that wants a change in government, an end to the austerity, end to the chaos, end to the destruction of our public services, an end to years and years of waiting for services to be provided to them, for waiting lists, people dying while waiting, our family members who died during the pandemic. There's a reason why that happened. This government was incompetent. More people died, many people died in ethnic minority communities, but over 220,000 people died in the pandemic. There was bad management of our public services and by our government. So it really costs. When you have a government that's not on your side, it costs lives. That's what we've seen with people waiting on waiting lists and dying waiting for treatment. That's what's at stake here. So if we want to change this government so that people here can be protected, as well as action in the Middle East and other parts of the world, by the way. I spent years campaigning for Rohingya Muslims. 1 million were forced out from Rakhine into Bangladesh. Tens of thousands of people killed, women raped and murdered. They're also Muslims. I have spent years and worked tirelessly to secure an international court of justice referral, working with different partners. That has taken a very long time. I have always campaigned for Palestinians. I went there in 2014 and 2019. I know what life is like under occupation. My colleagues in the Labour Friends of Palestinian group of MPs have worked ever since I've been an MP tirelessly. But the sad reality is that we haven't had the mobilization that we need. So what I ask people in our community and across the country, and I'm really proud of the people who've been peacefully demonstrating around this issue and many others, that we work together, because peace can't be secured unless we can act peacefully in a peaceful country.
Thank you. So the answer was yes. Just to go on back on to, sorry, one more question. Rishi Sunak posed a statement that under the Labour Party we'll be worse off with our taxes.
Well, we've made a very clear set of announcements, and our manifesto is published with a fully costed plan setting out what we would do and what the government
Would
has
our
done.
taxes increase then?
We have made absolutely clear that there are a series of taxes that won't increase. What the government has done, what Rishi Sunak has done, is, and his predecessor, crashed the economy because she made unfunded commitments. I spent years on the Treasury Committee questioning the Chancellor when Rishi Sunak was the Chancellor many times, and then when they crashed the economy, we in the Treasury Committee, working with the Bank of England, made sure that they addressed the issues that led to the crash. What I know, as someone who spent years focusing on the economy, is that this is a government that is quite happy to play fast and loose with our taxes and our economy. The tax burden is the highest for 70 years. Under the Tories, by the way, and families see that. Families experience that. My constituents have to live with that. I'm sure you're having to pay more in real terms in taxes while having a wage freeze for nearly a decade. Their wages haven't gone up. That is not on. And in the meantime, he's been given massive tax breaks to people who are very wealthy. So that is what's going on in reality in terms of what the Conservatives have done. We have made it very clear what our plans are, and it's fully costed, and we've ruled out a number of tax increases. What you will see is that Rishi Sunak has committed to getting rid of national insurance. That is billions of pounds, right? He's not identified where that money is going to come from. I tell you where it's going to come from. It's going to come from public service cuts. They're already attacking people who are disabled. They're attacking people who are sick. They're sick and can't go back to work because they're not getting the treatment in the NHS. So people's welfare funding that they desperately need because they are not well, they're not able to work, or they're disabled, that's going to be cut. People's housing support, which people in this community rely on, that's already been cut, housing benefit. So people are forced out of their neighbourhood into temporary accommodation up and down the country. People are not able to eat. They are living in poverty. We've got food banks. We've got children suffering. Then there'll be more welfare cuts under the Conservatives. They did that during the pandemic. They were quite happy to give subsidies and give tax money to wealthy people. They were quite happy to have dodgy PP contracts, which was corrupt. I exposed that. They wasted billions on contracts, dodgy contracts that went to their mates and went to their donors. Okay, that's what Rishi Sunak's legacy is. That's what his government has done. It's corruption, while our people of all backgrounds here in this country, in this community, have suffered while they couldn't get food on the table, and they're still struggling to get food on the table.
So we get more in our pockets through the Labour government.
We are absolutely committed to a new deal for work. We are absolutely committed to making sure work pays. We're the party that introduced the national minimum wage. We are the party that has always been for people, working people. We're the party that was established by the trade union movement. We're proud of that. Here in the East End, we have a proud tradition of the suffragette women's movement that ultimately helped create the chance for women's suffrage over 100 years ago, and the union movement. And my last point I would make is there's an attempt by certain people, and I think it's unacceptable, to intimidate my female colleague who's also standing as a Lib Dem, and me and my supporters. That is not right. This area has a great proud tradition of women standing up for public leadership positions in all roles, as councillors, as community activists, as journalists. We need to support them, and I think that people should act with honour and dignity when they're out campaigning. And I think it's really important when we are working for a future that has got to be positive for all communities, that we act in that way, because when you are seeking public office and you want to perform a leadership role, you need to also make sure you don't fuel conflict and you don't fuel division. My focus has always been, will always be, to keep our community together and united, even if there are forces of division and hate that try to sow division in our community, and that will always be the case. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So we've all heard from Roshna Ali, MP candidate for Bethnal Green and Stepney. So inshallah, the vote is on the 4th of July. Don't forget, election day. Until then, stay well, stay safe. Assalamu alaikum.